I shot a man in self-defense while serving my country, and the same system I swore to protect turned around and buried me for it. Everyone here calls me Daniel. That's not my real name. And after what happened to me, I've learned to keep my real name close. I was born in 1965, one of 9 children, 4 boys and 5 girls, raised in a house that valued discipline above almost everything else. I joined the Ghana Police Service in December 1989 and was posted to a specialized unit not long after, the kind of posting a young man is proud of. One evening I was heading to work, armed, walking straight towards my post in town, when I was suddenly surrounded by armed robbers near my destination. It was around 7 in the evening. They didn't know I was an officer. They knocked me down fast and stripped me of everything I was carrying. They missed the pistol though. I had it hidden. And when they realized I still had a weapon, they tried to wrestle it away from me. I fought back. I had to. In that struggle, the gun went off and I shot one of them in the chest before I even understood what had happened. My colleagues were only 100 meters away, working at our rail post. They heard a gunshot and came running back towards the noise immediately. By the time they reached me, the men had already fled. And in the chaos and the struggle, my pistol had gone missing from my hands. Those same men had taken the gun straight to the police headquarters, complaining it belonged to a thief who had shot one of their own group. They told the officers there that a thug had shot someone and they had bravely disarmed him, handing over the weapon as proof of their story. When I arrived and told my side, we found their statement already on the file. And according to the law, whoever reports first becomes the complainant. They had reported first. That single detail flipped the entire case. Suddenly, they were the victim, and I was the one under suspicion. I was locked in a cell for 4 days while investigations continued. Meanwhile, the men who attacked me were treated as witnesses and not suspects. After 4 days, I was released and sent back to my station, told to wait quietly while the investigations ran its course behind closed doors. Because I was interdicted, the law required it. I had no active duty. I surrendered my equipment and simply reported in 3 times a day. I believed my innocence would protect me. I had years of training telling me self-defense was self-defense and the truth would eventually come out clean. What I didn't expect was my own colleagues turning quietly against me, siding with a story that made my life easier for everyone but me. They locked the daily register without my name in it because I hadn't physically reached the post that evening before the attack happened. That absence became evidence against me, as if I had taken a government weapon somewhere illegal instead of walking straight into an ambush. I stayed interdicted for a full year, still at the barracks, still reporting, still waiting for a resolution that never seemed to arrive on schedule. Then officers came to collect me for a formal case, and I still walked in with confidence because innocence felt like an armor at that time. At headquarters, I was told I would face a robbery with violence charged, a charge carrying only 2 sentences in this country: life or the rope. The men I defended myself against were now officially calling it an attempted robbery, with me as the armed aggressor, holding them at gunpoint. But by pure luck, the investigating officer looked closer at the facts, and quietly changed my foul to a lesser charge, causing grievous harm instead. That decision likely saved my life, OJ, even though at that time I didn't fully understand how close I had come to something far worse. The case moved forward with the same men as complainants. Eventually, it reached a judge, and the judge called me privately into his chambers. He wanted something from me, something that felt like a bribe, dressed up as help. I refused to give him anything I owned or earned. He pushed the case towards judgment anyway, faster than expected, and before I had fully prepared myself for whatever verdict was coming my way. On Judgment Day, I went with my wife, and I already suspected what was coming, but I couldn't bring myself to frighten her beforehand. I emptied my pockets quietly before we left the house. My identity card, my cash, everything, because some part of me already knew I wasn't returning home. I told her my trousers had a hole in the pocket, a small lie to explain why I wasn't carrying my usual belongings that morning. The judge entered, called me to the dock, and sentenced me to 3 years in prison without any option of a fine, despite my innocence. I honestly didn't believe it in the moment. I told myself maybe this was procedure. Maybe the judge would reconsider once the paperwork settled properly. It wasn't until they changed my clothes for the prison uniform that the truth landed fully, that this was real and not a formality. Even standing there in the courtroom, some part of me kept waiting for someone to say there had been a mistake, but no one did. I told my wife to go home, that a 3-year sentence automatically meant maximum security, and that she should visit once I was settled. I served 10 months for that sentence. My wife fought outside the whole time, pushing an appeal through every channel available to her at that point. The appeal eventually succeeded, and I was released after 10 months, still legally employed, still technically part of the force, at least on paper. I returned to the barracks and found my wife still there, despite pressure from senior officers who wanted her removed once word spread about my case. She held her grounds with the seniors' wives and refused to be pushed out, even while people whispered about the husband who had gone to prison. The real punishment started after my release, when headquarters simply refused to give me any work, any post, any purpose beyond existing at the barracks. Strangely, my salary kept coming every single month, even during the 10 months I was locked away, which meant I hadn't technically been dismissed. For 3 full years, I lived like that, drawing a salary, doing nothing, existing in a kind of bureaucratic limbo nobody bothered to explain to me. Eventually, senior officers who had been drinking started harassing me about the barracks house, saying men without active duty had no right to a housing. I packed up and left quietly, rather than fight people who clearly wanted me gone, finding a rented room outside the barracks instead. A senior officer who knew me and my full story eventually intervened, ordering a truck to retrieve my belongings and bring me back into the barracks properly. I stayed another year like that, salary arriving, no duties assigned, until one afternoon soldiers at the gate said the main office wanted to see me. Marched there under escort, as protocol required, I found a senior officer waiting to accuse me of collecting salary under false pretense for years. He claimed I had been dismissed long ago and was stealing government money by continuing to collect pay I was no longer entitled to receive. I told him plainly that no one had handed me a dismissal letter, and salary doesn't keep arriving for men who've already been discharged. He threatened to have me arrested for fraud. I told him to go ahead because I knew I had done nothing wrong in any of this. He gave me 5 minutes to leave the barracks permanently, warning me of consequences if he ever saw me inside those gates again. I left that day for good, taking whatever I could carry, and decided I was finished chasing an institution that clearly wasn't finished punishing me. The only documents I ever received afterwards called it termination, not dismissal, a distinction that should have entitled me to my full pension and dues. I spent months moving from office trying to claim what I believed was owed me, getting handed small payments and endless silence in return. The only real payments I ever received was a minor family welfare scheme, nothing close to a pension a full completed term should have guaranteed me. I never found out if my salary kept coming after I left the barracks that final day because I refused to go back and check. Back then, salaries were paid in cash at a formation. Your name called, your signature signed, money handed over, no bank account tracking any of it. Nobody in government stayed loyal to a man once he's outside the system. And OJ, friends inside became strangers the moment you are no longer one of them. I had no money for lawyers, no connections willing to spend their own reputation defending me. So eventually, I simply stopped fighting the institution altogether. I took manual work after that, laboring on farms, helping build houses, anything that paid enough to keep a roof over my family's head. Eventually, I found steady work as a security guard, the only career path that still makes sense for a man with my peculiar background. If I ever had a chance to speak to someone in government today, I would ask them to think seriously about men who leave the forces quietly. So many former officers leave broken, unemployed the moment anyone learns their history, treated like liabilities instead of trained assets with real value. That kind of neglect is dangerous, OJ. Men who understand weapons and have nothing left to lose sometimes find their way into worse things entirely. I've watched former colleagues drift into criminal circles simply because no legitimate door stayed open to them after their service ended. At my age now, working night shifts as a guard feels heavier than it should. My body wants rest, my income refuses to allow. I think about the life I should have had, pension secured, respect intact, evenings spent watching my children grow instead of watching a gate at night. I don't chase justice anymore, OJ. I stopped believing anyone above me would ever look back and correct what was done to my records. I still don't have the discharge letter explaining anything properly. I still don't know if I was ever truly cleared or simply forgotten by design. Some nights on duty, I replay that evening near my old post, the gunshot, the missing weapon, the men who reported first and won everything. I defended myself against tags and somehow became the one punished for surviving. That contradiction never stopped sitting heavy on my chest, even now. There's no clean ending here, OJ. No promotion restored. No apology issued. No pension paid in full. Just a man guarding someone else's gate at night. I don't tell you this confession hoping for sympathy. I tell it because it happened exactly this way, and pretending otherwise would insult everything I survived. That's my confession, OJ. Not a lesson, not a warning. Just what the uniform cost a man who did exactly what he was trained to do. This is your anonymous OJ, and if you are new here, I would like you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hype this channel. And tell somebody about your anonymous OJ. I'll see you in our next confession.